When Taylor Swift posted those cozy Thanksgiving photos with Travis Kelce, the internet exploded with wedding fever. Fans dissected every angle of that engagement ring, analyzed their body language at the steakhouse dinner, and basically planned the entire ceremony themselves. But while the world celebrated this fairy tale romance, someone else was watching from the shadows, and her reaction told a completely different story. Hailey Bieber, the woman who's spent over a decade throwing shade at Swift, just couldn't help herself. And what she did next has Swifties ready for war. The timing was almost too perfect to be coincidental. Just as Taylor's engagement announcement sent shockwaves through social media, just as millions of fans were losing their minds over her upcoming Disney Plus documentary Confession, about Travis being the greatest surprise of her life, Hailey's finger found its way to the like button on some seriously shady Swift content. We're talking memes that mock, posts that tear down, and comments sections that get downright nasty. For someone who claims to have no beef with Taylor, Hailey sure has a funny way of showing it. And fans aren't buying the innocent act anymore. Let's rewind to Thanksgiving week. When Taylor and Travis gave us the content we didn't know we desperately needed, the couple had just watched the Chiefs demolish the Colts. And instead of hitting up some exclusive celebrity hotspot, they kept it low-key at a steakhouse with friends. Photos emerged showing Taylor cuddled up next to her fiancé, that massive engagement ring catching the light. Both of them looking happier than we've ever seen them. The body language screamed relationship goals. Travis had his arm protectively around her. Taylor was leaning into him like he was her entire world, and honestly, even the most cynical among us felt something warm and fuzzy inside. But the real moment that broke the internet came from Taylor herself, in a teaser for her upcoming documentary series, End of an Era, on Disney Plus. She opened up about meeting Travis in a way that felt raw and genuine. She called him the greatest surprise of her life. And you could hear the emotion in her voice. This wasn't calculated PR speak or carefully crafted marketing. This was a woman who'd been through public breakups, media scrutiny, and relationship drama for over a decade. Finally finding someone who made sense. Someone who showed up at her concerts with friendship bracelets and dad energy, who let her shine without needing to compete, who brought stability to the chaos of her superstar existence. The Swiftie community went into overdrive. Wedding Pinterest boards multiplied like rabbits. Fans started speculating about venues, analyzing Taylor's recent comments about wanting something intimate versus the reports that they're now considering a massive Tennessee celebration. Some insisted the Rhode Island beach ceremony rumor was still happening. Others pointed to sources claiming they want a private island extravaganza. The details didn't really matter though, because the bigger picture was crystal clear. Taylor Swift, the woman who'd turned heartbreak into platinum records, who'd weaponized her pain into poetry, had found her happy ending, and people were genuinely thrilled for her. Except for one person who seemed physically incapable of letting Taylor have her moment. Hailey Bieber has a documented history of inserting herself into Swift-related conversations. And this time was no exception. As engagement mania reached fever pitch, eagle-eyed fans noticed something disturbing. Hailey had been quietly liking posts and memes that took shots at Taylor. Not just harmless jokes either, but content specifically designed to diminish her achievements, mock her relationships, or paint her in a negative light. The pattern was unmistakable, and it wasn't new. See. Hailey's obsession with Taylor goes back way further than most people realize. We're talking 2012, years before she even married Justin Bieber. Back when she was still Hailey Baldwin trying to make a name for herself in the modeling world. Even then, she had this weird fixation on Swift, this need to position herself in opposition to everything Taylor represented. And as the years went on, as Taylor's star rose higher and higher while Hailey struggled to step out from the shadow of her famous last name and her pop star husband, that resentment only grew stronger. The most infamous incident happened back in 2019, and it's the kind of moment that lives rent-free in every Swiftie's mind. A video surfaced showing Hailey at some event where Taylor's name came up, and her reaction was visceral. She literally made a gagging gesture, her face contorting in disgust at the mere mention of Swift's name. Not a subtle eye roll or a quick grimace that could be explained away. A full-on, exaggerated gag that left zero room for interpretation. When the clip went viral and the backlash hit, Hailey tried to play it off as a joke, claimed people were reading too much into it. Did the whole taken out of context dance, but you can't fake that kind of gut reaction. And fans knew exactly what they saw. Then came the Scooter Braun situation, which added a whole new layer of toxicity to this mess. When Taylor's master recordings were sold to Braun, the music manager who'd tormented her for years, It became the biggest controversy in the industry. Taylor poured her heart out about feeling violated, about having her life's work stripped away without her consent, about the betrayal of seeing people she thought were friends side with her enemy. And who jumped to Scooter's defense? Justin Bieber, Hailey's husband, posting throwback photos with Brown and taking subtle digs at Taylor in the process. Hailey stood by her man, liking his posts, supporting his stance, essentially choosing a side in a battle that had nothing to do with her. That's when fans started keeping receipts, screenshots of every like, every comment, every suspicious social media move Hailey made in relation to Taylor. And the pattern that emerged was damning. Whenever Taylor achieved something major, whenever she broke a record or released new music or made headlines for positive reasons, Hailey would find some way to throw shade. Sometimes it was liking posts from Taylor's critics. Sometimes it was posting cryptic Instagram stories with pointed song lyrics. Sometimes it was engaging with content that mocked Swift's personal life. It became almost predictable. Fast forward to 2023. And the drama reached new heights during what fans now call the Great Eyebrow War. Yes, you read that right. It started when Hailey posted some TikTok content that Selena Gomez fans interpreted as a dig at their girl, specifically mocking her eyebrows. Selena, Taylor's best friend and Hailey's longtime nemesis, due to the whole Justin situation, found herself under attack. And when Hailey's friend Kylie Jenner joined in on what appeared to be coordinated mean girl behavior, the internet lost its collective mind. Taylor didn't publicly comment, but she didn't need to. Her friendship with Selena spoke volumes, and Swifties declared war on Hailey's behalf. The thing about Hailey is that she operates in plausible deniability territory. She never directly calls out Taylor by name, never posts an explicit diss or makes an obvious attack. Instead, she works in the shadows, liking the right posts at the right times, making sure her digital footprint tells a story even if her mouth stays shut. It's a calculated form of bullying that's harder to call out because she always has an excuse ready. Just a coincidence. Didn't mean anything by it. People are so sensitive these days, but when you've been doing it consistently for over a decade, the coincidence defense starts to fall apart. And then came May 2025. The moment that made even Hailey's defenders pause. Taylor posted about finally owning her master recordings. A triumphant declaration after years of fighting for control of her own music. It was a huge victory, both personally and professionally, representing everything she'd been working toward. And Hailey liked the post. At first glance, it seemed like an olive branch, a sign of respect, maybe even an indication that the feud was overblown. But Swifties saw right through it. This wasn't support. This was performance. This was Hailey trying to look like the bigger person while continuing her pattern of inserting herself into Taylor's narrative. Because here's what makes that like so insidious. After years of supporting Scooter Braun, after standing by while her husband mocked Taylor's pain over losing her masters, after all the subtle digs and shady behavior, suddenly Hailey wants to celebrate Taylor's victory. The math wasn't mathing. Fans called it fake support, transparent pandering, an attempt to rewrite history and position herself as someone who'd been on Taylor's side all along. The comments under every post discussing it were brutal. Nobody was buying what Hailey was selling. But to really understand why Hailey can't seem to let Taylor breathe, you have to understand the Selena factor. Because this has never really been about Taylor directly. It's always been about the triangle that dominated pop culture gossip for nearly a decade. Justin Bieber and Selena Gomez had one of those relationships that defined a generation. They were the it couple, the will to when they couple. The couple that broke up and got back together so many times that fans lost count. For 8 years, they cycled through romance and heartbreak, public declarations and messy splits, reconciliation rumors, and definitive endings. Hailey was always there in the background, orbiting Justin's world, tweeting her support of Jelena as a fan, watching from the sidelines as he gave his heart to someone else over and over again. Then came 2018, the year everything changed. Justin and Selena had their final breakup, the one that actually stuck. And within months, literally just months after ending things with Selena for good, Justin was engaged to Hailey. They got married quickly, quietly, with a courthouse ceremony that felt rushed even by celebrity standards. The timeline raised eyebrows across the board. Selena handled it with grace, at least publicly. She released music that hinted at her pain, gave interviews about healing and growth, focused on her career and mental health. But the fans never forgot. They built timelines, analyzed social media patterns, created conspiracy theories about whether Justin had been seeing Hailey while still with Selena, debated whether Hailey was the reason for their final split, And through it all, Taylor stood by her best friend's side, offering support without getting publicly messy about it. Until possibly now. Because here's where things get really interesting. When Taylor released her Midnights album, fans immediately started dissecting every lyric for hidden meanings and secret messages. One song in particular, a track called Question, had Swifties convinced they'd cracked the code. The lyrics seemed to tell the story of a friend watching their bestie get mistreated by a guy who couldn't commit, who kept coming back just to leave again, who caused pain that the friend couldn't forgive. The details lined up too perfectly with Justin and Selena's relationship for it to be coincidental. Fans went wild with the theory. Finally, they said, Taylor was using her platform to call out Justin's behavior toward Selena. Finally, she was putting into words what everyone had been thinking for years. The song became an anthem for anyone who'd watched a friend get hurt by someone undeserving, who'd bitten their tongue to keep the peace but secretly wanted to unleash hell. And if the theory was true, it meant Taylor had been paying attention to everything, cataloging the mistreatment, waiting for the right moment to address it in the only way she knew how, through her music. Neither Taylor nor her team ever confirmed the theory, but they didn't deny it either. And in the Swift universe, silence often speaks louder than words. The song's popularity skyrocketed among Selena fans, becoming their unofficial battle cry in the ongoing war against Hailey. Every time Hailey threw shade at Selena, fans would flood comment sections with lyrics from the track. Every time old drama resurfaced, the song would trend again on social media. It became bigger than just music. It became a statement, and Hailey knew it. She had to have known that Taylor's massive fanbase was dissecting her every move, that any misstep would be documented and weaponized. That crossing Swift meant facing millions of angry Swifties ready to defend their queen. But she couldn't seem to stop herself. The compulsion to engage, to throw shade, to insert herself into the narrative was stronger than her sense of self-preservation. Which brings us back to those shady likes during Taylor's engagement celebration. When fans started posting receipts of Hailey's recent social media activity, the evidence was overwhelming. She'd liked multiple posts that mocked Taylor's relationship history, suggesting the Travis romance was just another publicity stunt destined to fail. She'd engaged with content implying Taylor was desperate for marriage and family, playing into sexist narratives about women in their 30s needing to settle down. She'd supported accounts that existed solely to tear down Swift's achievements, diminish her cultural impact, and paint her as calculated and fake. The pattern was undeniable. Swiftie detectives went into full investigative mode, and when Swifties investigate, they make actual detectives look lazy. They pulled up screenshots going back years, building comprehensive timelines of every interaction between Hailey and Taylor-related content. They created comparison charts showing how Hailey's shady behavior always seemed to coincide with Taylor's biggest career moments. They analyzed the timing of her likes and comments, noting how they often came within hours of positive Swift news breaking. The level of research was honestly impressive, if slightly terrifying. The call for a full-scale Swiftie versus Bieber war spread across social media platforms like wildfire. TikTok became ground zero for the battle, with creators on both sides making videos defending their chosen celebrity. Memes flooded Instagram and Twitter, some hilarious, others cutting deep with their commentary about jealousy, insecurity, and the price of living in someone else's shadow. Fan accounts dedicated to exposing Hailey's behavior gained hundreds of thousands of followers overnight. The drama became its own ecosystem, feeding itself and growing exponentially with each new post. But while all this online chaos unfolded, something else was happening behind the scenes that added another layer of intrigue to the situation. Justin Bieber's behavior had become increasingly erratic and concerning throughout 2025, and fans couldn't help but wonder if his marriage was in trouble. It started in January when he inexplicably unfollowed Hailey on Instagram, sending their fanbase into a panic. For hours, speculation ran rampant about an impending divorce announcement, about cheating scandals, about the marriage finally crumbling under the weight of its questionable foundation. Justin eventually addressed it, claiming someone had hacked his account and unfollowed Hailey without his knowledge. He refollowed her immediately and tried to downplay the incident as a technical glitch. Most people bought the explanation, or at least pretended to, but the seed of doubt had been planted. Why would a hacker unfollow his wife and nothing else? Why wouldn't they post something inflammatory or try to actually damage his reputation? The story didn't add up, and fans filed it away as potential evidence of deeper issues. Then came the crying videos. Multiple times throughout the year, Justin went on Twitch or Instagram Live, visibly emotional, sometimes with tears streaming down his face as he talked about relationships and loyalty and feeling lost. One particular stream in late November, just as Taylor's engagement news dominated headlines, showed him breaking down while discussing a doomed relationship. He didn't specify what relationship he meant, leaving fans to interpret whether he was talking about his marriage, his past with Selena, or something else entirely. But the timing felt significant. Sources close to the couple, those anonymous insiders who always seemed to know just enough to be dangerous, started whispering about trouble in paradise. They claimed Justin and Hailey had been arguing constantly, that the pressure of public scrutiny was taking its toll, that old wounds from the Selena era had never really healed. Some reports suggested Justin still harbored feelings for his ex, that he'd rushed into marriage before fully processing the end of that relationship, that Hailey was growing resentful of always being compared to the woman who came before her. Whether those rumors held any truth is impossible to say definitively, but the circumstantial evidence kept piling up. Justin's social media presence became sporadic and moody. Hailey started posting more couple photos than usual, as if trying to prove everything was fine. They'd go weeks without being photographed together, then suddenly appear at an event, looking coordinated and in love, only to disappear again into radio silence. The hot and cold pattern, the obvious attempts at damage control, the defensive energy radiating from both of them, it all pointed to a relationship under serious stress. And here's where the Taylor connection becomes almost poetic in its irony. While Hailey was busy throwing shade at Swift's happy engagement, her own marriage appeared to be falling apart. While she was liking posts mocking Taylor's relationship, her husband was crying on livestream about emotional turmoil. While she tried to diminish Taylor's joy, her own life seemed to be unraveling in real time. The universe has a funny way of delivering karma, and Swifties were absolutely living for the schadenfreude. Some fans took it even further, suggesting that Hailey's obsession with Taylor was actually projection, that every dig she took at Swift was really about her own insecurities, her own fears of not measuring up, her own anxiety about being second choice. After all, Justin had spent 8 years choosing Selena over and over again. Only marrying Hailey after that option was permanently off the table. That's a hard pill to swallow, knowing you only got the guy because his first choice was no longer available, and watching that first choice's best friend find genuine happiness with someone who chose her first, who celebrated her publicly, who showed up consistently. That had to sting. The stolen spotlight theory gained traction because it made psychological sense. Hailey had grown up as a Baldwin, a member of a famous family, but always somewhat in the background. She'd built a modeling career but never reached supermodel status. She'd married one of the biggest pop stars on the planet, but remained known primarily as Justin's wife rather than for her own achievements. Every time she tried to step into the light, someone else seemed to be shining brighter. And nobody shone brighter than Taylor Swift, whose success was so massive, so unprecedented, that it made everyone else look dim by comparison. So when Taylor announced her engagement, when she got to experience that fairy tale moment with someone who worshipped her, Hailey's reaction wasn't really about Taylor at all. It was about everything Hailey wasn't, everything she wished she had, everything that seemed to come so easily to others while she had to fight for scraps of recognition. The shade wasn't strategic or calculated. It was compulsive, driven by an emotion she probably couldn't even fully articulate, a resentment so deep it had become part of her personality. The meme battles that erupted in the wake of all this drama were honestly legendary. Swifties, known for their creativity and savage humor, came armed with receipts, screenshots, and perfectly edited videos that destroyed Hailey's credibility. They dug up every contradictory statement she'd made, every instance of hypocrisy, every moment where her mask slipped and the mean girl underneath showed through. They contrasted her behavior with Taylor's, highlighting how Swift handled criticism with grace while Hailey resorted to petty likes and subtle digs. On the flip side, Hailey's defenders tried to paint her as a victim of Swiftie mob mentality, arguing that she was being bullied for existing, that fans were reading too much into innocent social media activity, that the hate she received was disproportionate to her actions. They pointed out that Taylor had her own history of feuds and drama, that she wasn't some perfect angel above reproach, that maybe both women could exist without one being vilified. It was a reasonable argument in theory, except it ignored the mountain of evidence showing Hailey's consistent pattern of behavior over more than a decade. The debate raged across every platform, celebrities and influencers weighing in with their takes, think pieces being published about celebrity feuds and female rivalry. Cultural critics analyzing what the drama said about society's treatment of women in the public eye. Some argued that the whole situation was manufactured by publicists to keep all parties relevant. Others insisted it was genuine beef that had simply been amplified by social media. A few brave souls suggested that maybe we shouldn't be invested in strangers' drama at all, though those people were quickly shouted down by both sides. Through it all, Taylor remained above the fray, at least publicly. She didn't acknowledge Hailey's behavior, didn't respond to the speculation about hidden diss tracks, didn't engage with the fan wars being waged in her name. She posted about her engagement and her music and her love for Travis, radiating happiness in a way that felt authentic and earned. Her silence was its own form of power, a refusal to let anyone else's negativity dim her shine. And honestly, that probably bothered Hailey more than any clapback ever could, because that's the thing about living in someone's shadow. You can throw all the shade you want, like all the petty posts you can find. Make all the subtle digs your heart desires, but at the end of the day, the sun still rises. Taylor Swift is who she is, with or without Hailey's approval. Her success doesn't require validation from anyone, especially not from someone whose claim to fame is marrying the guy who spent nearly a decade obsessed with Taylor's best friend. The power dynamic was never equal, and Hailey's attempts to level the playing field only highlighted the gap. What made this particular drama cycle so fascinating was how it exposed the different ways women navigate fame and conflict. Taylor built an empire on vulnerability, turning her pain into art and her critics into motivation. She weaponized her songwriting ability, creating narratives that resonated with millions while settling scores in the most melodic way possible. When people came for her, she wrote an album about it and made millions while doing so. Her power came from refusing to be silenced, from owning her story before anyone else could twist it. Hailey, on the other hand, seemed to operate from a place of defensiveness and reaction. She was always responding to someone else's narrative rather than creating her own. Her identity felt tied up in other people, in Justin, in the Baldwin family name, in opposition to Selena and Taylor, rather than standing on its own merit. That's not to say she had no accomplishments. Her beauty brand had achieved decent success. Her modeling career had its moments, but she never managed to step fully into her own spotlight. And maybe that's because she spent so much energy trying to diminish other women's light instead of focusing on making her own brighter. The contrast between Taylor's engagement, joy, and Hailey's apparent marriage struggles became its own narrative within the larger drama. Fans created side-by-side comparisons of Taylor and Travis looking loved up at dinner versus Justin crying on livestream. They posted about how Travis showed up at dozens of Era's tour shows to support his girl versus Justin's history of public disrespect toward the women in his life. They highlighted the difference between a relationship built on mutual respect and one that seemed founded on rebound timing and unresolved baggage. Was it fair to speculate so heavily about Hailey and Justin's private relationship? Probably not. Did it stop anyone? Absolutely not. Because when you spend years throwing stones at other people's happiness, when you mock their relationships and diminish their joy, people tend to lack sympathy when your own foundation starts cracking. Karma might not be real in the cosmic sense, but the court of public opinion has a long memory and zero chill. Hailey had spent over a decade making deposits in the bad behavior bank, and now the interest was coming due. As winter approached and wedding planning presumably ramped up for Taylor and Travis, the online tension showed no signs of cooling down. If anything, every new detail about their upcoming nuptials seemed to spark fresh drama. Fans analyzed venue rumors for hidden meaning, debated whether Selena would be a bridesmaid, wondered aloud if Taylor would write a song about this whole mess that directly called out Hailey by name. The speculation became its own form of entertainment, a never-ending soap opera where everyone had opinions and nobody had all the facts. What happens next in this saga is anyone's guess. Maybe Hailey will finally learn to scroll past Taylor-related content without engaging. Maybe her marriage will survive the rumors and emerge stronger. Maybe she'll find her own spotlight and stop worrying about who else is shining. Or maybe the pattern will continue, with her unable to resist throwing shade whenever Taylor achieves something new, destined to remain trapped in a cycle of resentment and comparison that serves nobody, least of all herself. For Taylor, though, the path seems clearer. She's got her man, her music, her masters, and millions of fans who would go to war for her without being asked. She's built a career that will outlast any feud, any drama, any petty social media like, and she's done it while maintaining enough grace to not directly engage with someone who clearly can't stand to see her win. That's the ultimate flex, refusing to acknowledge that someone's bothered by you. Just living your best life and letting the success speak for itself. The story of Taylor Swift's engagement and Hailey Bieber's inability to let her have that moment in peace is really a story about power, insecurity, and the price of comparison. It's about what happens when someone achieves a level of success so extraordinary that their mere existence feels like a personal attack to those struggling to find their own way. It's about the difference between tearing others down and building yourself up, between living in someone's shadow and creating your own light, between letting bitterness consume you and choosing to be happy for others even when you're struggling yourself. And maybe that's the real tea here. Not the specific likes or memes or shady posts, but what they represent. The inability to escape a narrative you've created for yourself, even when it's making you miserable. The trap of defining yourself in opposition to someone else rather than on your own terms. The exhausting reality of maintaining a feud that only one person seems invested in continuing. Hailey Bieber might never escape Taylor Swift's shadow, not because Taylor won't let her, but because she keeps choosing to stand there, throwing shade that only highlights how brightly the sun shines. And until she figures out how to step into her own light, the cycle will continue. The drama will persist, and the Swifties will keep their receipts organized and ready for the next round.